So let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship, because I think, yes, you can definitely apply this model to entrepreneurship. With true entrepreneurship, what I mean by that is when you're creating a new category. So I'm not talking about opening up like a franchise dry cleaning business, which is also entrepreneurship. I'm not denigrating it, but I'm saying if you're truly creating a new kind of category. And the case I'll use here is the case of Jim McKelvey, who's been a Fireside guest, and he was one of the co-founders of the product that later became Square. And basically it's, making a phone a credit card. And the reason he thought about this product, and it was not his first business, he's actually a glass blower. He's a very highly skilled and highly trained glass blower. And he was in the process of packing up his studio in one part of the country to move it to another. And there was this huge, really ugly piece of glass that he didn't know what to do. He didn't really like it. And he finally found a buyer for it. And he was just thrilled. But it turns out this buyer was a woman who wanted to pay for this thing on her American Express card. And he couldn't accept American Express cards. He was a very small business at the time. And, tiny little businesses can't afford interchange fees. They can't afford the overhead of what it takes to be accredited as a vendor. And Amex is expensive. I mean, for years, many people didn't carry them because they were so expensive to wear. So he lost the sale. And this sparked in him a passion to figure out, why couldn't we make a credit card product that would work for people like him, that would work for small vendors. And he's got a wonderful book called The Innovation Stack, which I can highly recommend to any of you that are interested in innovation. I can also recommend watching our Fireside Chat, which you'll find on YouTube. He's just tells the story in a wonderful way. But what he talks about is that any existing regime bumps up against a wall. And if you think about it as venturing out into unknown territory, there comes a point where what's known comes to an end. And it comes to an end, I would argue, this is my language, not his, but it comes to an end because there's some breakthrough, there's some barrier, there's some inflection point that has not yet happened. And what these true entrepreneurs do is they really think about, what would it take to break through that? Like, what is the inflection point I would have to create or leverage to break through that? And McKelvey talks about all the things they had to do to turn the phone into a credit card. And there's a whole chapter on how you get regulated as a credit card provider. And then there's the technology, right? Because those of you that know the Square reader, it's a tiny little square that you plug into the part of your phone that used to have the headphones in it, which doesn't anymore. And I guess now they plug it into wherever the charging thing is. But, they had to make this really thin, really attractive looking device. They had to solve all these problems. And so what I think how the model applies in entrepreneurship is, you've got your time zero, which is this thing's in everybody's hands. And my brother who does plumbing can accept credit card payments. That's the vision. That's the time zero. But what we have to do is break through all these barriers to do it. And in the book, McKelvey talks about how Amazon literally tried to take them out. They had I think it was called Neighborhood, something like that. I forget what the Amazon reader was, but he said he would go to bed at night like sweating bullets because, my God, one of the best financed, most aggressive, best run companies on the planet is coming after your little startup. And he said, we talked about it, we spoke about it, we went back and forth as a leadership team, trying to figure out, what are we going to do? And then we decided to do absolutely nothing differently, because we had solved all these problems that Amazon didn't even know existed yet. And eventually, after about, I think it took about a year, but after about a year, Amazon folded. They just said, we can't compete with this startup that's so laser focused on solving this series of problems. And in what I thought was quite a nice gesture to the customers, when Amazon decided to pull out of this business, they bought Square readers for all of their customers. Sent the Square readers in a beautiful little box with a note saying, we think you'll be better serviced by working with Square. And, fascinating story. But again, you've solved these problems in ways that are not copyable by somebody who hasn't had that experience. And so that's how I would relate it to this sort of category creating flavor of entrepreneurship.